A routine encounter. In the heart of a bustling city, Officer Mia Johnson and her partner, Officer David Reyes, patrolled the streets in their cruiser, a stark reminder of their duty to uphold the law. It was a sweltering summer afternoon, and the air buzzed with life as pedestrians hurried past shops and cafes. But amid the usual chatter, the tension inside their patrol car was palpable. David had recently expressed his discontent with the department's new policies, particularly the promotion of officers from diverse backgrounds. Mia, a bright and ambitious officer, found herself caught in the crossfire of his increasingly hostile rhetoric. "Can you believe they put a black woman in charge of the precinct?" David scoffed, his grip on the steering wheel tightening. "It's a joke. Just look around. This city is falling apart." Mia shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her heart racing at his words. She had always believed in the potential for change, especially with the new leadership aimed at fostering equality within the force. "David, we don't know her. Maybe she deserves the position," she offered cautiously. David's laughter was harsh and dismissive. "You think they care about qualifications. They just want to check off boxes. It's all about appearances now." Mia felt her stomach churn at his blatant racism, but struggled to articulate her discomfort. "We should give her a chance. She might surprise us," she said, hoping to steer the conversation away from the prejudiced undertones. "Knave," he shot back, his tone dripping with disdain. "You'll see. They'll ruin this department." As they turned onto a quieter street, David's mood shifted suddenly. His gaze narrowed on a sleek black sedan gliding smoothly through the traffic. The driver, a well-dressed woman in her 30s, navigated the roads with grace, her demeanor exuding confidence. "Look at that car," David muttered, the familiar contempt creeping into his voice. "I bet she stole it." Mia's instincts flared. "David, she's obeying all the traffic laws. There's no reason to pull her over," she insisted, a hint of frustration creeping into her voice. "Just watch," David replied, a dangerous glint in his eye. He flicked on the cruiser's lights, signaling the driver to pull over. Maya felt a knot tighten in her stomach as the woman complied, smoothly guiding her vehicle to the curb. As they approached the sedan, Mia's heart raced. The driver rolled down her window, revealing an expression that blended apprehension and poise. "Is there a problem, officers?" she asked, her voice steady. "License and registration," David commanded curtly, his tone bereft of any warmth. The woman's hands trembled slightly as she handed over her documents, but her demeanor remained composed. "Maya Thompson," David read aloud, his voice edged with suspicion. "What brings you to this part of town, Miss Thompson?" "I have a meeting nearby," Maya replied, a hint of confusion lacing her voice. "Is there something I've done wrong?" The tension escalated as David's gaze turned predatory. "We asked the questions here," he snapped, his authority laced with malice. "Step out of the vehicle." Maya hesitated, glancing at Mia, who felt an overwhelming urge to intervene. "David, please. She hasn't done anything wrong," Mia implored, her voice trembling. "Just do it," David barked, his frustration palpable. Maya, sensing the rising tension, opened the door slowly, her expression shifting from confusion to wariness. Mia felt her heart race as she stepped closer to Maya, trying to convey a sense of solidarity. "It's going to be okay," she murmured, though her voice wavered. But David's demeanor morphed from professional to confrontational as he began questioning Maya with an unsettling intensity. "Nice car you've got here, Miss Thompson. Mind if we take a look inside?" "No, I do mind," Maya responded firmly, her voice filled with quiet strength. "I haven't done anything wrong, and I do not consent to a search." David's eyes narrowed, a dangerous smile creeping across his face. "Oh, I see you've got something to hide," he taunted, yanking the car door open and rifling through the interior. Maya's stomach churned at the unfolding scene, realizing it was spiraling into something far more sinister than a routine traffic stop. Just then, Mia noticed David covertly slip something from his pocket, sliding it beneath the driver's seat, Her pulse quickened, her instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. This wasn't just racial profiling. This was a setup. "Maya, you have to know this isn't right," Maya said, stepping forward to protect her. "Step aside, rookie," David growled, his anger palpable as he continued his invasive search. Maya felt frozen, her conscience battling with her loyalty to her partner. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief as David triumphantly brandished a small bag of white powder. "Well, well, well," he declared, his tone dripping with satisfaction. "Looks like we've got ourselves a drug dealer." "No, that's not mine," Maya exclaimed, her voice a mixture of desperation and disbelief. "You just planted that." David reveled in his supposed victory, ignoring her pleas. "You're under arrest." Mia's heart sank. She couldn't allow this to happen. The weight of her duty pressed heavily on her shoulders, but the tension in the air was unbearable. She could see the fear in Maya's eyes and felt an overwhelming sense of moral obligation. "David, this isn't right," she said, her voice barely a whisper. David's response was swift and furious. "You don't get to question me. I've been on this force longer than you've been alive." His tone was sharp, filled with contempt and authority. Mia's resolve began to strengthen as she witnessed the injustice unfold. She realized that this moment wasn't just about her partner's misguided beliefs. It was about standing up for what was right, regardless of the consequences. In the midst of the escalating tension, Mia made a decision that would alter the course of her career. "Stop, David," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You can't do this." David froze, his expression shifting from disbelief to simmering anger. "What did you just say?" he demanded, his voice low and threatening. "I said stop. This isn't right. She's innocent, and you know it," Maya replied, her heart racing as she stood her ground. The air crackled with tension as the confrontation escalated. In that moment, Mia knew that the path she chose would define her not only as an officer, but as a person committed to justice, confrontation, and revelation. Mia Johnson felt the tension in the air thicken, the weight of David's anger settling over her like a suffocating blanket. Each second stretched out, the silence between them deafening. David's glare bore into her, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. Mia knew that this moment was pivotal. It wasn't just about her role as an officer, but about who she was as a person. "Do you really think you're going to save her, Maya?" David scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You think your little act of defiance will change anything? You're just a rookie trying to play the hero." Mia could feel her heart pounding in her chest, but she stood her ground, refusing to back down. "This isn't about being the hero, David. This is about integrity. You're crossing a line that should never be crossed, and I won't be part of it." As David fumed, the reality of the situation dawned on Mia. This wasn't merely a disagreement. It was a battle of principles. The weight of the badge she wore felt heavier than ever, a constant reminder of the oath she had taken to protect and serve. The ideals of justice and fairness seemed worlds away from the reality of what she was witnessing. Maya stood beside them, her eyes darting back and forth, unsure of what would happen next. The fear etched on her face resonated with Mia, amplifying her sense of urgency. "You need to let her go, David," Mia implored, her voice rising slightly. "You're about to make a huge mistake." David's jaw clenched tightly, and the anger radiating from him was palpable. "You think you can lecture me? I've been on this force for over a decade. I know how things work, and I know what people like her are capable of." Mia took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. "People like her? What does that even mean?" she countered. "You're reducing her to a stereotype, and that's not who we are as officers. We're supposed to uphold the law, not manipulate it for our own biases." His eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Maya thought he might strike her, the rage bubbling over into physical violence. But she held her ground, her mind racing as she tried to think of a way to defuse the situation. "What's going on here isn't just wrong. It's illegal. If you arrest her under these circumstances, you'll be ruining her life for no reason other than your own prejudice, she pressed. David laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You think I care about her life? This isn't about her. It's about us. This is about maintaining order in this city. If we let people like her think they can get away with anything, it'll all fall apart. Mia shook her head, frustration boiling within her. You're not maintaining order. You're perpetuating a cycle of injustice. If we keep allowing our biases to dictate our actions, we're no better than the criminals we're trying to apprehend. The word hung in the air, a stark challenge that resonated with the moral complexity of their roles as police officers. Maya realized that this confrontation wasn't just a simple traffic stop gone wrong. It was emblematic of the systemic issues plaguing law enforcement and society as a whole. Maya watched in silence, her heart racing as she absorbed the exchange. The officer who was standing up for her, Mia, was showing a strength that resonated deeply within her. She could see the conflict raging within Mia, the struggle between loyalty to her partner and her commitment to justice. David, Maya spoke up, her voice steady despite the underlying fear. You don't have to do this. You can still choose to do the right thing. Just let me go, and we can forget this ever happened. David's expression hardened, his pride wounded by the implication that he might be wrong. I can't just let you go. You think this is some game. You think your pretty words are going to save you. Enough. Mia shouted, stepping forward, her heart racing as she took a stand. You need to stop. You're making a colossal mistake, and you're not thinking about the consequences. David stepped closer, invading her space, his face a mask of fury. And what are you going to do about it, Mia? You think you can just override my authority? I can make your life miserable. I can ruin your career with a single report. Mia felt a flicker of doubt, but it quickly faded. The realization washed over her like a wave, and she knew she couldn't back down now. Maybe I'll lose my job, she replied, her voice steady. But I refuse to be complicit in this injustice. I refuse to let an innocent person be wrongfully accused because of your prejudice. The standoff intensified, the tension so thick it was almost tangible. Mia could sense the gravity of the moment. This was about more than just a traffic stop. It was about integrity, justice, and the soul of the police force itself. She thought about everything she had learned in the academy, the stories of officers who had stood up for what was right against all odds. This was her moment to make a stand. Maya looked at Mia, a flicker of hope igniting within her. Perhaps this officer had the courage to challenge the status quo, to fight for her in a system that had consistently failed her. Please, Maya urged, her voice tinged with desperation. I can't go to jail for something I didn't do. David, Maya said, her voice softer now, filled with urgency. If you go through with this, it will haunt you for the rest of your life. You're better than this. You have the chance to do something right, something that could change lives. For a brief moment, David hesitated, the flicker of doubt crossing his features. But then his pride surged back. You're delusional if you think you can make me change my mind. I'm not backing down, he declared, his voice hardening again. Mia felt the weight of despair settle in her stomach, but she couldn't give up. I'll report you, she vowed, her determination unwavering. I'll make sure everyone knows what happened here today. You won't get away with this. The tension reached a boiling point as they stood there, the air charged with unresolved emotions. Mia could hear the distant sounds of the city, the honking of cars, the chatter of pedestrians, fading into a muffled backdrop. All that mattered was the confrontation unfolding in front of her. Then, without warning, David lunged forward, hand reaching for Maya's wrist to pull her toward him. You're under arrest, he shouted, the anger erupting from him like a volcano. But before he could grasp her, Mia instinctively stepped in between them, putting her body in the path of his aggressive advance. No, Maya shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. You will not hurt her. David's eyes flared with rage, but Maya stood firm, her heart racing, as she braced herself for the confrontation that lay ahead. "You're crossing a line, David. You don't get to take your anger out on her." Maya, emboldened by Mia's stand, nodded vigorously. "You don't have to do this. You can stop. You can change your mind right now." The power of their words hung in the air, creating a tense atmosphere that felt electric. Mia's heart raced as she stood resolutely against her partner's aggression, her commitment to justice fueling her strength. Just as the tension seemed unbearable, a loud siren blared in the distance, cutting through the air like a knife. Backup was approaching, and with it came the possibility of change. The sound seemed to awaken something within David, an understanding that he was no longer in control of the situation. The arrival of other officers would bring scrutiny to his actions, and he could feel the tide beginning to shift. "Get back in the car," he shouted, his face contorting with frustration and panic as he realized he was losing his grip. "This isn't over, Mia." But as the sirens grew louder, so did Maya's resolve. "No, it's just beginning," she replied, her voice steady and unyielding. "This is our moment to do what's right." The sound of footsteps echoed as other officers arrived on the scene, their presence a stark reminder of the responsibilities that came with wearing the badge. They observed the confrontation unfolding, confusion evident on their faces as they took in the tense atmosphere. "Officer Reyes, what's going on here?" one of them called out, concern lacing their voice. Maya turned to face the approaching officers, her heart racing as she prepared to reveal the truth. "David has just tried to arrest an innocent woman based on his prejudices. I witnessed everything," she declared, her voice ringing clear with conviction. The other officers exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from confusion to realization. They had seen this kind of abuse of power before, and Mia's courage sparked something within them, a desire to confront the systemic issues that plagued their department. "Let's take a step back," one of the officers suggested, moving closer to defuse the situation. "Mia, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Maya replied, her gaze unwavering. "But she isn't. We need to ensure that Maya is treated with the respect and dignity she deserves." The approaching officers nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. As they assessed the unfolding drama, the atmosphere shifted, revealing a collective commitment to justice. David, realizing he was losing control, stepped back, his bravado wavering. "You don't know what you're doing," he shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "This is a mistake." Mia remained steadfast, her heart pounding as she felt the weight of accountability pressing upon them all. The truth was coming to light, and there was no turning back. The moment had arrived to confront the long-standing issues within their department, and it was a reckoning that would echo far beyond this isolated incident. The gathered officers formed a protective circle around Maya, their presence a statement of solidarity and commitment to justice. Maya felt a surge of hope as she realized they were no longer alone in this fight. Together, they would challenge the corruption that had taken root within their ranks and ensure that the values of integrity and respect prevailed. In that charged moment, as the sirens faded into the background, Mia knew they were on the brink of change. The battle for justice was far from over, but they were ready to face it together. As the officers exchanged information and began to discuss the incident, Mia turned to Maya, who was visibly shaken but now emboldened by the support around her. "You're safe now," Maya reassured her, her voice gentle. "We're going to make sure this gets sorted out." Maya's eyes glistened with gratitude, the fear slowly receding as she sensed this shift in the atmosphere. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. "I didn't think anyone would stand up for me." Mia smiled, her heart swelling with the knowledge that they had taken a critical step towards justice. "Sometimes it takes just one person to spark change," she said, her determination renewed. In that moment, surrounded by fellow officers committed to making a difference, Maya felt a profound sense of purpose. They had the power to rewrite the narrative, to challenge the biases that had plagued their department, and to ensure that incidents like this never happened again. The fight for justice had just begun, and Mia was ready to lead the charge. The aftermath of confrontation. The sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the city as the tension of the earlier confrontation slowly began to dissipate. Maya stood beside Maya, surrounded by her fellow officers, who were now rallying around them in solidarity. The atmosphere was charged with both relief and uncertainty. They had confronted a systemic issue, but the journey ahead was fraught with challenges. As the last of the sirens faded into the distance, the sound of murmuring voices filled the air. Mia could see the concern etched on her colleagues' faces as they began to discuss the events that had just unfolded. It was a mixture of disbelief and determination, a collective realization that they had a duty to confront the issues within their own ranks. "Are you okay, Maya?" one officer, Sam, asked as he stepped closer. "That was intense. You really stood your ground back there." Mia nodded, still feeling the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice steady, but her heart racing. "But we need to make sure this doesn't happen again. We have to address what just went down." Maya, still shaken, turned to Mia, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you for standing up for me. I didn't think anyone would care enough to do that," she said, her voice soft but resolute. Mia smiled gently, her resolve firm. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of who they are or what they drive. We need to hold each other accountable. As the group began to disperse, Mia felt the weight of the moment settle over her. This was a turning point, not just for her, but for the entire department. They had confronted a dark chapter in law enforcement, and the path to reform would be long and arduous. "Let's head back to the precinct and file a report," Sam suggested, breaking Mia from her thoughts. "We need to document everything that happened today. It's crucial for accountability." Mia nodded in agreement, her mind racing with the implications of what had just occurred. As they walked back to the cruiser, she glanced at Maya, who was still absorbing the reality of the situation. "You're going to be okay, right?" Maya asked gently. Maya took a deep breath, her expression shifting from fear to determination. "I will be. I won't let this define me. I want to fight back against what happened today," she replied, her voice gaining strength. Mia felt a swell of admiration for Maya's resilience. "That's the spirit," she said, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Together, we can make a difference." Upon arriving at the precinct, Mia and Maya were met with a flurry of activity. Officers were busy handling paperwork, discussing the day's events, and preparing for the night shift. The air was thick with the aroma of coffee and the low hum of chatter, but Maya felt a different tension lingering in the atmosphere, one of uncertainty and anticipation. As they entered the report room, Mia's heart raced. This was where the real work began, where the truth would be laid bare, and where they would hold David accountable for his actions. She sat down at the desk, her fingers hovering over the keyboard as she prepared to write the incident report. "Let's make sure we include every detail," Sam said, leaning over to review her notes. "It's important that we document everything accurately. We can't let this be swept under the rug." Mia nodded, her determination strengthening. "Agreed. We need to highlight how David's actions were not only inappropriate but also illegal. If we don't speak up now, nothing will change." Maya watched as Mia began to type, her heart swelling with gratitude. She could see the fire in Mia's eyes, the passion for justice that was driving her forward. "I want to help," Maya said, her voice steady. "Whatever I can do to support this, I'm in." Mia glanced up, surprised but pleased. "Thank you, Maya. Your voice is crucial. If we present a united front, it will carry more weight." As they began to compile their report, a heavy silence settled in the room, interrupted only by the sound of typing and the occasional rustle of paper. Each word they typed felt like a small step toward justice, a means of reclaiming the narrative that had nearly been stolen from Maya. But as they worked, Mia couldn't shake the feeling of dread that loomed over her. She knew that filing this report could have serious consequences, not just for David, but for her career as well. The risk of retaliation hung heavy in the air, and she questioned whether she was truly prepared for the fallout. Just then, the precinct's captain, a seasoned officer named Captain Stevens, entered the room. His expression was serious, a sign that he had been briefed on the earlier incident. "Mia, I need to speak with you," he said, his voice grave. Mia's heart sank. This was it. She had known this moment would come, and she braced herself for whatever lay ahead. "Of course, Captain," she replied, standing up from her desk. "Let's step into my office," he instructed, leading the way. Mia exchanged a glance with Maya, who offered an encouraging nod. She would face this head-on, facing the captain. Inside Captain Stevens' office, the atmosphere was tense. The walls were lined with plaques and commendations, reminders of the honor and responsibility that came with wearing the badge. But Maya felt a knot tighten in her stomach as she took a seat, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. "Mia, I've just been informed about the incident with Officer Reyes and the woman you pulled over," Captain Stevens began, his tone measured but serious. "This isn't the first time I've heard complaints about his behavior. We need to talk about what happened." Mia took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling heavily on her shoulders. "Captain, I have to be honest. I witnessed something that was deeply troubling. David was about to arrest an innocent woman based solely on his prejudices. It was wrong, and I couldn't stand by and let it happen." Stevens nodded slowly, his expression contemplative. "I appreciate your honesty, Mia. This department has been trying to move forward, but it's difficult when we have officers who operate under outdated beliefs. We can't condone this kind of behavior." "I know," Maya replied, her voice steady. "But if we don't take action against David now, it sends a message that this kind of conduct is acceptable. It's not just about him. It's about the culture within the department. We have to change that." Captain Stevens leaned back in his chair, his gaze piercing as he considered her words. "You understand that by coming forward, you're putting yourself at risk. There will be backlash. Are you prepared for that?" Mia felt a surge of anxiety at his words, but she also felt a flicker of determination. "I am. I know this is a risk, but I won't be complicit in the kind of corruption that harms innocent people. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem." Stevens studied her for a long moment, his expression softening. "I commend your courage, Mia. It's officers like you who can help us reshape this department for the better. But I need you to be fully aware of the implications of your decision." Mia nodded, feeling a mix of fear and resolve. "I understand, Captain. But I believe that standing up for what's right is worth any risk I might face." "Good. I'll ensure that we follow through on your report and investigate David's actions," Stevens replied, his tone firm. "We'll also provide support to you and Maya as this unfolds. You won't be alone in this." "Thank you, Captain," Maya said, relief flooding through her. She could feel the weight of responsibility lift slightly, knowing that she wouldn't be facing this challenge by herself. As she left the office, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The battle was far from over, but they had taken the first steps toward accountability. She found Maya waiting outside, anxiety written across her face. "What did the captain say?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mia smiled, the determination shining through her eyes. "He's supportive. We're going to file the report, and he's committed to investigating what happened today." Maya's face lit up with relief. "That's incredible. I can't thank you enough for standing up for me, Mia. You're really doing this." "It's not just me," Maya replied, her tone earnest. "We're in this together. We have to support each other if we want to create change." The two women shared a moment of understanding, a bond forged in the fire of adversity. They were no longer just strangers caught in a difficult situation. They were allies, ready to challenge the status quo and demand justice. Rallying support. With the report filed and their intentions clear, Mia and Maya began to strategize how to ensure their voices were heard. They understood that the fight for justice would not end with the filing of a report. It would take a concerted effort to create lasting change within the department. "Let's reach out to other officers who might support us," Maya suggested as they gathered in the break room, nursing cups of coffee. "We need allies in this fight, people who believe in what we're doing." Mia nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "Absolutely. We can organize a meeting to discuss our experiences and the need for reform. If we can unite officers who are committed to integrity, we can start a movement within the department." As they brainstormed, they compiled a list of officers who had shown signs of being open-minded or had previously expressed concerns about the department's culture. It was a small group, but they knew that even a few committed voices could make a significant impact. "Let's set a date for the meeting," Maya said, feeling a surge of excitement. "We can create an agenda to address the issues we face and propose ideas for reform. This is our chance to influence change from within." Maya's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "I love it. Let's also gather some resources, maybe articles or studies that highlight the need for police reform. If we can back up our ideas with solid evidence, it'll make a stronger case." Over the next few days, Mia and Maya worked tirelessly to prepare for the meeting. They designed an agenda that outlined their experiences, the incident with David, and the systemic issues they wanted to address. They invited fellow officers to join them, hoping to ignite a spark of change within the department. As the day of the meeting approached, anticipation buzzed in the air. Maya felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety, unsure of how their colleagues would respond to their call for change. Would they rally behind them, or would fear of repercussions silence their voices? On the day of the meeting, the small conference room was filled with a sense of purpose. Officers from various backgrounds filed in, their expressions reflecting a blend of curiosity and concern. Mia could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders as she prepared to address her peers. "Thank you all for coming," Mia began, her voice steady as she faced the group. "We're here today because we believe in a future where integrity and justice are the cornerstones of our department. The events of the past few days have highlighted a critical issue that we can no longer ignore." Maya stood beside her, nodding in agreement. "We want to create a culture that values accountability and respect for every individual, regardless of their background. We cannot allow prejudice to dictate our actions." As they presented their case, Maya felt a growing sense of solidarity among the officers in the room. They shared their experiences, their frustrations, and their hopes for a better future. The dialogue was open and honest, a breath of fresh air in a department that had long been mired in silence and fear. "I've seen the impact of biases in our work," one officer, Sarah, admitted, her voice tinged with emotion. "I felt the pressure to conform, to look the other way when I know something isn't right. But we can't keep doing this. It's time for change." Mia and Maya exchanged a glance, a surge of hope swelling within them. They were no longer alone in their fight. They had begun to ignite a movement. As the meeting continued, more officers began to speak up, sharing their experiences and supporting the call for reform. They discussed the importance of training on implicit bias, community engagement, and establishing a transparent system for reporting misconduct. By the end of the meeting, the room was alive with energy. The officers united in a shared vision for the future of their department. They began to brainstorm actionable steps they could take together, creating a working group dedicated to reform. "Let's not let this momentum die," Mia urged as the meeting drew to a close. "We need to hold each other accountable and push for real change. This is just the beginning." As the officers filed out, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had taken a critical step toward transforming their department, challenging the status quo and standing up for what was right. Maya turned to Mia, a beaming smile on her face. "We did it. This was amazing. I can't believe how many people showed up and supported us." Mia nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "It's a powerful reminder that we can create change when we stand together. This is just the start of our journey." But as they left the meeting room, Mia knew that the real work was still ahead of them. The fight for justice would not be easy, and they would face challenges along the way. However, they were ready to confront whatever came next, united in their mission to bring integrity and accountability back to their department. The road to reform would be long, but with each step they took, they moved closer to a future where every officer upheld the values they had sworn to protect. And for the first time in a long time, Mia felt hopeful about what lay ahead. The road to reform. The days following the meeting felt electric for Mia and Maya. They were buoyed by the support of their fellow officers, but the reality of their mission began to sink in. Change wouldn't come easy, and they were acutely aware of the potential backlash from those who resisted reform. Nonetheless, they remained steadfast, motivated by the belief that they could reshape the culture of their department. Planning for change. In the weeks that followed, Maya devoted themselves to laying the groundwork for the changes they envisioned. They met regularly with the small group of officers who had expressed support for their initiative, discussing the best ways to advocate for their cause. Let's focus on specific areas where we can make an immediate impact, Maya suggested one afternoon as they gathered in Mia's cramped office. We can draft a proposal for mandatory training on implicit bias and de-escalation tactics. Mia nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. If we can educate our officers, it might shift their perspectives and encourage more accountability in their actions. We could also create a community outreach program to build trust with the residents we serve. With a clear vision in mind, they began drafting a comprehensive proposal outlining their objectives and the necessary steps to implement change. They detailed the importance of transparency, community engagement, and a commitment to upholding the law without prejudice. As the proposal took shape, they decided to reach out to community leaders and advocacy groups to gain their perspectives and support. It's crucial that we involve the community in this process, Mia explained to Maya. We need to hear their concerns and work together to find solutions. They organized a series of community forums, inviting residents to share their experiences with the police and express their hopes for the future. The response was overwhelming. People were eager to share their stories, and many expressed gratitude for the department's willingness to listen. Maya attended the first forum, her heart racing as she prepared to speak. This is our chance to show them that we care, she told Mia before stepping up to the microphone. We want to build a department that serves everyone equally, and we need your voices to help us achieve that. As she spoke, the room was filled with murmurs of agreement and encouragement. Residents shared stories of both positive and negative interactions with the police, and Maya listened intently, taking notes and soaking in every word. Thank you for giving us a platform, one resident said. For too long, we felt unheard. We want to work with you to create real change. Resistance and challenges. While the initial response to their outreach efforts was encouraging, Mia and Maya soon faced resistance from unexpected places. Whispers began to circulate within the precinct, with some officers openly questioning their motives. Why are you trying to change things? David's voice cut through the office one afternoon, his tone dripping with disdain. You think you can just waltz in here and change how we do things? Mia felt her heart race as she faced David. This isn't about changing how things are done for the sake of it. It's about doing what's right. You can't deny that there are issues that need addressing. David scoffed, crossing his arms defiantly. You think just because you got a few officers to back you up, you can take on the entire department. You're playing with fire, Mia. His words stung, but Maya remained resolute. I'm not afraid of a little pushback, David. What scares me is the idea that we might let this opportunity for change slip through our fingers. Despite the tension, Mia and Maya pressed forward with their initiative. They hosted training sessions for their colleagues on implicit bias and de-escalation techniques, and the turnout was better than they had anticipated. Slowly, they began to notice a shift in attitudes among some of their fellow officers. During one training session, an officer named Rick spoke up, expressing his own struggles with navigating complex interactions in the community. I didn't realize how my biases could impact my decisions, he admitted, a note of vulnerability in his voice. I want to do better. Mia felt a flicker of hope. That's the first step, Rick. Acknowledging our biases is crucial to becoming better officers. We're all here to learn and grow. As they continued to foster an environment of openness and accountability, Mia and Maya also faced challenges from outside the department. Local news outlets picked up on their initiative, highlighting the growing movement for reform within the precinct. Some praised their efforts, while others criticized them, painting them as troublemakers seeking to undermine the department. Mia braced herself for the scrutiny, knowing that public opinion could shift quickly. We need to stay focused on our mission, she told Maya during one of their strategy sessions. Let's not let the negativity deter us from making a difference. Building a coalition. To solidify their efforts, Mia and Maya began building a coalition of community leaders, activists, and even sympathetic officers. They organized meetings where they could share ideas and discuss strategies for fostering positive relationships between the police and the community. During one meeting, they invited a prominent community activist, Lisa Johnson, to speak about her work in promoting police accountability. It's vital that we hold each other accountable, she said passionately. The community deserves to feel safe and respected, and that begins with trust. Mia felt inspired by Lisa's words. Exactly. We need to create a culture of transparency. If we can foster trust between the police and the community, we can work together to address the issues we face. As they continued to build relationships, they also began to see tangible changes in the precinct. More officers began to show up at community events, eager to engage with residents and learn from their experiences. The shift was gradual, but Maya felt encouraged by the progress they were making. However, the road was still fraught with challenges. David remained a vocal opponent, rallying others who shared his views against the changes Mia and Maya were advocating. This is not how we do things here, he would say, attempting to undermine their efforts at every turn. Mia knew they had to confront David and his supporters directly. We can't let them bully us into silence, she said during a planning session with Maya and their coalition. We need to make it clear that we're committed to this path, no matter the obstacles. A turning point. As the weeks turned into months, the pressure began to mount. Maya felt the weight of her choices more acutely, realizing that the risks they were taking were beginning to affect not just her career, but her relationships within the department. Officers who had once been friendly now looked at her with suspicion or disdain, influenced by David's antagonism. One afternoon, as Mia sat in her office, she received a message from the captain requesting a meeting. Her stomach twisted in knots. She feared it was about the ongoing conflict, a reprimand for stepping out of line. When she entered Captain Stevens' office, she was surprised to find Maya already seated, her expression serious. "What's going on?" Maya asked, a sense of dread creeping in. Captain Stevens gestured for them to sit. "I want to commend both of you for your efforts," he began, but Maya felt a tension in the air. "However, I've also received complaints about the initiatives you've been leading. There are some who feel that your actions are undermining the authority of the department." Mia's heart sank. "We're not trying to undermine anyone. We're trying to create a safer environment for everyone, officers and the community alike." "I understand that," Stevens replied, his tone conciliatory but firm. "But we need to navigate this carefully. I can't afford to alienate officers who feel threatened by these changes." Maya interjected, "This isn't just about the department. This is about the community. If we don't address these issues, we're failing in our duty to protect and serve." Captain Stevens nodded thoughtfully. "I agree with you both. But we need to find a way to ensure everyone feels heard. We can't push too hard, too fast." Mia felt a flicker of frustration. "With all due respect, Captain, this is about more than just feelings. This is about making real changes that could save lives. We can't afford to compromise on that." Stevens sighed, clearly weighing his options. "I appreciate your passion, but I need to ask you to tone it down for now. We need to focus on building consensus, not creating division. We can discuss reforms in a more structured way, perhaps through a formal committee. Mia felt a mixture of disappointment and resolve. If that's what it takes to keep moving forward, I'll agree to it. But we can't let this slip through our fingers. Maya nodded in agreement. We need to ensure that this isn't just a temporary shift. We need lasting change. As they left the office, Maya felt the weight of the conversation linger in the air. They were navigating treacherous waters, but she was determined not to lose sight of their goal. The community response. With their new strategy in place, Mia and Maya began working to build broader community support for their initiatives. They organized town hall meetings to discuss their proposed changes and gather input from residents. The goal was to show that they were committed to listening to the community and making their concerns a priority. During one of these meetings, a young mother named Angela spoke up, her voice shaking with emotion. "I just want my kids to feel safe when they see a police officer. I don't want them to think that they're in danger just because of the color of their skin," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. Maya felt her heart ache for Angela and all the families who had felt the weight of systemic bias. "You're absolutely right," Maya replied, her voice steady. "We want to change that narrative. We want to be seen as allies, not enemies. Your voices are crucial in this process, and we want to work together to make our community safer for everyone." As they continued to gather feedback, Maya felt a sense of purpose begin to take root within her. The community was responding positively, and residents were eager to engage with the police force in a meaningful way. They began to form partnerships with local organizations, creating programs that would foster trust and transparency. However, the resistance within the department did not abate. David continued to rally officers who opposed their efforts, and rumors began to circulate that Mia and Maya were trying to take over the precinct. The atmosphere grew increasingly hostile, and Mia could feel the tension each time she walked through the halls of the precinct. Despite the challenges, Maya remained committed to her mission. She knew that reform was never easy, but she also knew that change was necessary. With Maya by her side, they pushed forward, determined to bring about the transformation their community so desperately needed. A catalyst for change. As the months passed, the momentum of their efforts began to shift in their favor. More officers began to join their cause, emboldened by the support of the community. They organized a series of workshops and training sessions focused on communication, conflict resolution, and community engagement. Mia and Maya were invited to speak at various community events, sharing their vision for a more equitable police force. With each presentation, they noticed a growing interest in their mission. Local news outlets began to cover their initiatives, portraying their efforts as a movement for change within law enforcement. One evening, at a community barbecue organized to foster relationships between police and residents, Maya felt a sense of hope as she watched families interact with officers. Children played games while adults shared stories and laughter, and for the first time in a long while, it felt as if the community was healing. Maya looked over at Maya, who was chatting with a group of residents. "I can't believe how far we've come," Maya said, her voice filled with wonder. "This feels like a turning point." Maya smiled, her eyes shining. "It really does. People are starting to see us as allies instead of adversaries. This is what we've been fighting for." But as they enjoyed the evening, David's shadow loomed large in the background. Maya spotted him standing apart from the crowd, arms crossed and expression dark. He watched the scene unfold with a mixture of disdain and resentment. Feeling a surge of resolve, Mia approached him. "David," she said, her tone firm but respectful. "Why are you standing over here? Why not join us?" He scoffed, the bitterness palpable. "This is just a show, Mia. You think one barbecue is going to change anything. You're delusional if you think these people will trust you." Mia's heart raced, but she refused to back down. "It's not about a single event, David. It's about building relationships and fostering trust over time. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with us taking responsibility for our actions." David shook his head, disbelief etched across his face. "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this." "Maybe," Maya replied, her voice steady. "But I'd rather take a stand for what's right than stand idly by and let things remain the same." As she walked away, Maya felt a sense of empowerment. She knew that confronting David and his mindset was crucial, and while it wouldn't be easy, they were on the right path. The turning point. As the summer progressed, Mia and Maya's efforts began to gain traction. The precinct instituted a formal community advisory board, allowing residents to have a direct say in police policies and practices. They invited community leaders and activists to collaborate with officers on strategies for enhancing public safety while fostering respect and dignity. One day, Maya received a call from Captain Stevens, who informed her that their proposal for community policing initiatives had been accepted by the department's leadership. "We're making strides, Mia," he said, his tone filled with encouragement. "The chief is backing your initiative, and we're rolling it out department-wide." Mia felt her heart leap with joy. "Thank you, Captain. This is a huge step forward." As they implemented the new initiatives, Maya saw firsthand the transformation taking place. Officers began to engage more with the community, attending local events and participating in discussions about public safety. People were starting to feel seen and heard, and the atmosphere shifted from one of fear to one of collaboration. But as they celebrated their victories, Maya and Maya remained vigilant. They knew that old habits die hard, and that they would need to continue advocating for accountability. With every success, they were reminded of the work that lay ahead. As the year drew to a close, Maya reflected on the journey they had taken. From that fateful day when she had stood up to David, to the community forums, the resistance, and ultimately the victories, it had been an uphill battle. But with each step, they had built a foundation for lasting change. Maya looked at Maya, her partner in this endeavor. "We've come so far," she said, a smile spreading across her face. "But there's still work to do. We can't let up now." Maya nodded, her determination unwavering. "We won't. This is just the beginning." Together, they stood at the forefront of a movement, one that sought to redefine the relationship between law enforcement and the communities they served. They were no longer just officers in a precinct. They were catalysts for change, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And as the new year approached, Maya felt a sense of hope swell within her, a belief that they could indeed create a brighter future for all. Trials and triumphs. As the new year approached, Mia and Maya stood on the precipice of change. Their efforts to reshape the culture within the precinct had begun to bear fruit, but they knew that the journey ahead would be riddled with obstacles. The sense of hope that had blossomed in the community also brought with it the reality that not everyone was supportive of the reform they were championing. Growing tensions. In the weeks following the implementation of the Community Advisory Board, Mia noticed an increase in tension within the precinct. While many officers embraced the changes, a faction remained staunchly resistant. David continued to rally support among those who felt threatened by the evolving culture, and Mia could sense an undercurrent of hostility brewing. One afternoon, as Mia walked through the precinct, she overheard a heated discussion between David and a few other officers. "They're trying to turn us into social workers," David spat, his voice low but full of contempt. "This isn't what policing is about. We're supposed to enforce the law, not coddle criminals." Mia's stomach twisted at his words. It was clear that David's rhetoric was not only divisive but dangerous. She knew they had to counteract this narrative before it gained more traction. Determined to confront the issue head-on, Mia gathered her allies for an emergency meeting. "We need to address the concerns some officers are expressing," she said, her voice steady as she stood in front of the small group of supportive colleagues. "We can't let misinformation fester. If we want real change, we need to be proactive in addressing these fears." "Agreed," Maya chimed in, her tone earnest. "Let's organize a series of workshops where we can address the importance of community policing. We need to show that these changes don't undermine our authority, but rather enhance our ability to serve. As they brainstormed ideas for the workshops, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not only advocating for reform, but also creating a platform for dialogue, one that could bridge the gap between the two factions within the department. Workshops and engagement. In the weeks that followed, Maya organized a series of workshops aimed at addressing concerns and educating officers about the principles of community policing. They invited guest speakers, including community leaders, who could share their experiences and perspectives on law enforcement. The first workshop was met with mixed feelings. Some officers attended with open minds, while others, like David, were openly skeptical. "What's the point of this?" he challenged during a Q&A session. "You think some community member is going to teach us how to do our jobs better?" Mia took a deep breath, her heart racing, as she prepared to respond. "It's not about teaching us how to do our jobs. It's about understanding the community we serve. The more we understand their needs and concerns, the more effectively we can protect them," she explained, her voice steady. David scoffed, crossing his arms defensively. "And what happens when we start getting soft on crime? You think they'll respect us if we show them kindness?" Mia could feel the tension in the room. "Respect is earned, David. If we want to build trust, we need to show that we care. We can't just be enforcers. We need to be partners in this community." As the workshops continued, Mia began to see a shift in some of her colleagues. Several officers expressed gratitude for the opportunity to engage with community members, and some even shared their own experiences where communication had de-escalated potentially volatile situations. During one workshop, a veteran officer named Chris opened up about a time when he had taken the time to listen to a teenager's concerns rather than resorting to authority. "I realized that when I treated them like people instead of suspects, it made a world of difference," he admitted. "They were more willing to cooperate, and it actually helped me do my job better." Mia felt a swell of hope as Chris shared his story, recognizing that real change was starting to take root. The narrative was shifting, and people were beginning to understand the importance of empathy in policing. Facing backlash. However, despite the progress they were making, David's resistance grew fiercer. He rallied a group of officers who opposed the reforms, claiming that Mia and Maya's efforts were undermining the core values of the department. Whispers of discontent circulated throughout the precinct, and Mia could feel the tension escalating. One day, as she was preparing for another community forum, she received an anonymous note slipped under her office door. It read, "You're a traitor to the badge. You'll regret your actions." The words sent a chill down her spine, and she felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. Maya noticed Mia's unease as they prepared for the event. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern etched across her face. "I received this," Maya replied, handing Maya the note. "It seems like some officers are taking this personally." Maya's expression hardened. "We can't let fear stop us. If anything, this shows how necessary our work is. We're fighting against the old ways of thinking that have held this department back for too long." Mia nodded, but a part of her felt the weight of uncertainty. She had always wanted to be a police officer, to make a difference, but she didn't want to become a target. "What if this escalates?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It might," Maya admitted, her tone resolute. "But we have to keep pushing forward. We're standing up for what's right. We can't let intimidation dictate our actions." That evening, as the community forum unfolded, Maya felt a sense of trepidation mixed with determination. She stood before a crowd of residents, ready to share updates on their initiatives and gather feedback. The room was filled with familiar faces, many of whom had supported their efforts from the start. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Mia began, her voice steady. "Your input is crucial as we continue to work together to build trust and accountability within our police department." As she spoke, she noticed a group of officers standing in the back, their expressions hard and unyielding. David was among them, arms crossed, casting a shadow over the proceedings. Maya felt a surge of anxiety, but pushed through, focusing on the community members who were eager to engage. During the queue and a portion of the forum, a resident named Marcus stood up, his voice strong. "I appreciate what you're doing, Officer Johnson, but we need to see real changes. We need to feel safe, not just hear about reforms. How can we trust that things will actually change?" Mia took a deep breath, grateful for the opportunity to address the concern. "I understand your skepticism, Marcus. Change takes time, and we know we have a long way to go. But we're committed to transparency and to engaging with the community. Your trust is vital, and we're here to earn it, one step at a time." As the forum continued, Maya felt the weight of the moment. She could see the skepticism in some of the officers' faces, but also the hope in the community members. She realized that they were at a crossroads, one that could lead to either progress or further division. A crucial incident. The following week, just as Mia and Maya were beginning to feel the tide turning, a critical incident rocked the community. An officer-involved shooting occurred in a neighboring precinct, igniting protests and outrage among residents. Videos of the incident circulated on social media, showing the chaotic aftermath and the emotional turmoil of witnesses. Mia's heart sank as she watched the news coverage unfold. She knew that the incident would have repercussions, not just for the department involved, but for every officer in the area. The trust they had been working so hard to build was hanging by a thread. "Do you think we should address this at our next community forum?" Maya asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "Absolutely," Maya replied, her voice firm. "We need to show that we're committed to accountability and transparency. We can't shy away from difficult conversations." As they prepared for the forum, Maya felt a surge of determination. This was an opportunity to reaffirm their commitment to the community and to demonstrate that they would not shy away from tough discussions. The night of the forum arrived, and the room was filled with an anxious energy. Residents were understandably upset, and many expressed their outrage over the shooting. Maya listened intently as individuals shared their fears and frustrations. "Why should we trust the police?" One woman shouted, her voice quivering with emotion. "You're all just going to keep protecting each other, aren't you?" Mia stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. "I understand your anger, and I don't blame you for feeling that way. But I want to assure you that we're committed to holding ourselves accountable. We can't change the past, but we can promise to work toward a better future." David and his faction watched from the back, their expressions hard as they absorbed the backlash against law enforcement. Mia felt a twinge of fear at their presence, but knew she had to stay focused on the community. As the night progressed, emotions ran high. Residents expressed their fears of police brutality, while Maya sought to reassure them that their department was dedicated to reform and accountability. "Change doesn't happen overnight," Maya said, her voice strong. "But we're here to listen and to learn from you. We want to be part of the solution, not the problem." Despite their efforts, the atmosphere remained tense. As the forum drew to a close, Maya felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The community was hurting, and she knew that they had to do more to rebuild the trust that had been shattered by recent events. A renewed commitment. In the aftermath of the forum, Mia and Maya regrouped to assess their next steps. They realized they needed to take a proactive approach to rebuilding trust and addressing the community's concerns. "We have to show them we're listening," Maya insisted. "We can't just talk about change. We need to demonstrate it through action." Mia agreed, her mind racing with ideas. "Let's organize community engagement events where we can work alongside residents, not just talk at them. Let's volunteer at local shelters, participate in community cleanups, and show that we're committed to being a part of this community." Over the next few weeks, Mia and Maya coordinated a series of community events, bringing officers and residents together in shared activities. They organized a neighborhood cleanup day, inviting residents to join them as they worked to beautify local parks and streets. The response was heartwarming. Families turned out in droves, working side by side with officers to make a tangible difference in their community. As Mia picked up trash alongside residents, she felt a sense of camaraderie beginning to blossom. "This is what community policing is all about," she said to Maya as they worked together. "It's about building relationships and showing people that we care." Maya nodded, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Exactly. When they see us here, doing the work together, it starts to break down the barriers." As the events continued, Mia began to notice a subtle shift in attitudes, both within the department and the community. More officers began participating, eager to engage with residents and learn about their concerns firsthand. But as the momentum grew, so did the backlash from David and his faction. They began to circulate rumors, trying to undermine Mia and Maya's efforts. "They're just doing this for show," one officer sneered during a break in the precinct. "They don't really care about the community. They just want to be seen as heroes." Mia heard the whispers, and while they stung, she refused to let them deter her. "We know the truth," she said to Maya as they prepared for their next event. "And we're making progress, one small step at a time." A defining moment. Just as they began to feel a sense of momentum, the defining moment of their efforts arrived. One sunny Saturday morning, Mia and Maya organized a community forum focused on healing and reconciliation. They invited residents to come and share their stories, fostering an open dialogue about the challenges they faced and how they could work together moving forward. As the event began, the air was thick with anticipation. Maya stood before the crowd, her heart pounding as she prepared to speak. "Today, we're here to listen," she said, her voice steady. "This is a safe space for you to share your experiences and your concerns. We want to understand how we can better serve you." The first speaker, a young woman named Jasmine, stepped forward, her voice trembling but determined. "I've always been afraid of the police," she admitted, tears in her eyes. "I've seen too many of my friends treated unfairly. I just want to feel safe in my own neighborhood." Mia felt a knot form in her stomach, but she remained focused on Jasmine's words. "Thank you for sharing that with us, Jasmine. It's important for us to hear how our actions impact you. We want to change that narrative." As more residents spoke, sharing their stories of pain, frustration, and hope, Mia felt a profound sense of empathy wash over her. She realized that their efforts were about more than just policy changes. They were about healing relationships and rebuilding trust. When the forum concluded, Mia and Maya invited residents to participate in small group discussions, encouraging them to brainstorm ideas for future collaboration between the police and the community. As the discussions unfolded, Maya felt a sense of unity beginning to form. Residents and officers alike were sharing ideas and working together to envision a future where trust and respect reigned. The ripple effect. In the weeks that followed, Maya witnessed a ripple effect from the community forum. Local news outlets covered the event, highlighting the collaborative spirit that was beginning to take hold. The community's response was overwhelmingly positive, and many residents expressed their gratitude for the police's willingness to engage in meaningful dialogue. More officers began to step up, eager to be a part of the change. They volunteered for community events, attended workshops, and actively participated in discussions about reform. Maya felt a surge of pride as she watched her colleagues embrace the new culture taking shape within the department. But even as progress was being made, the specter of David's faction loomed large. He continued to undermine Mia and Maya's efforts, working to rally support against them. It became increasingly clear that he and his supporters were willing to go to great lengths to protect the status quo. One afternoon, while Mia was reviewing reports in her office, she overheard David and a few other officers discussing a plan to discredit their initiatives. "We need to show that this is just a phase," David said, his voice low but filled with contempt. "If we can undermine their credibility, we can take back control." Mia felt a surge of anger as she listened to the conversation unfold. She knew they couldn't let David succeed. They had worked too hard to create a culture of transparency and accountability, and they were not going to let anyone sabotage their efforts. a show of solidarity. Determined to counteract David's influence, Mia called for a meeting with her supportive colleagues. "We need to stand together now more than ever," she said, her voice resolute. "We can't let David's actions undermine the progress we've made. We need to show our commitment to this movement and to each other." Maya nodded, her expression fierce. "Let's organize a show of solidarity. We can invite community members to join us at a precinct open house. It will demonstrate our commitment to transparency and community engagement." With that idea in mind, they began planning the event. They reached out to residents, community leaders, and other supportive officers to ensure it would be a success. They prepared materials outlining their initiatives, ready to showcase their commitment to reform. The day of the open house arrived, and the precinct buzzed with excitement. Officers mingled with residents, discussing their shared goals and visions for the future. Maya and Maya stood side by side, welcoming everyone with open arms. As the event unfolded, Maya felt a sense of unity building. Community members expressed their appreciation for the department's efforts and shared stories of positive interactions with officers. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, connection, and hope. But as the evening progressed, Maya noticed David lurking in the background, his expression dark and resentful. She could sense the tension in the air as he watched the proceedings with disapproval. Just as Mia was about to address the crowd, David stepped forward, a smirk on his face. "I think it's time we address some of the concerns regarding your little community outreach," he announced, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You think all of this is going to change how people perceive us? You're just wasting your time." The crowd fell silent, eyes shifting between Mia and David, the tension palpable. Maya felt her heart race, but she knew she couldn't back down. "No, David, this is about more than just perception," she replied, her voice steady. "It's about building trust and fostering relationships with the community. This is what policing should be about." David scoffed, crossing his arms defiantly. "And what about accountability? What about doing our jobs? You're just encouraging complacency." Mia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Accountability is crucial, but so is understanding. We can't enforce the law effectively if we don't know the communities we serve. We're working toward a balance, one that values both accountability and community engagement. As she spoke, she noticed a few officers shifting their weight, expressions softening as they considered her words. The crowd's support for Mia was palpable, and she felt a surge of hope. A moment of truth. Just as Mia thought she had regained control of the moment, David pressed further. "You really think people are going to trust you just because you throw a few community events? You're naive if you believe that," he sneered. Mia felt a fire igniting within her. "David, we've already begun to see the change. People are responding positively, and that matters. Change doesn't happen overnight, but we're laying the groundwork for a better future." David scoffed, but as Mia looked around the room, she saw supportive nods from her fellow officers. It became clear that the tide was turning. "You may want to resist this change, David," Mia continued, her voice steady and unwavering. "But the truth is, this is happening, and we're all going to be better for it." With that, Mia stepped back, letting the applause from the crowd wash over her. She felt an overwhelming sense of support, and in that moment, she knew they had come too far to turn back. David's scowl deepened, and Mia understood that this was a pivotal moment, a confrontation that would define their trajectory moving forward. A new era. In the weeks following the open house, the department began to shift dramatically. The support for Mia and Maya's initiatives grew stronger as more officers began to actively participate in community engagement efforts. The cultural landscape within the precinct was changing, but they knew the fight was not over. As the first quarter of the year drew to a close, Maya and Maya hosted another community forum to report on their progress and gather feedback. Residents filled the room, eager to discuss their experiences and provide input on the ongoing initiatives. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Maya said, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Your voices matter, and we're committed to ensuring that you feel safe and respected in our community." As the evening unfolded, the atmosphere was filled with hope and optimism. Residents shared stories of positive interactions with officers, highlighting the progress made since their initial discussions. The room buzzed with ideas for further collaboration. Maya felt a surge of pride as she watched Mia engage with the community. "We've made it through some tough times," she whispered to Mia during a break. "But look at where we are now." Mia nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "We've only just begun, but it feels like we're finally heading in the right direction." However, as they celebrated their victories, they remained vigilant. The remnants of resistance lingered, and Mia knew they had to continue advocating for change. But now, they had a stronger foundation to build upon, one that included the voices of both the community and the support of officers within the department. Looking ahead, as the sun set on a promising spring evening, Mia and Maya reflected on their journey thus far. They had faced resistance, uncertainty, and fear, but they had also experienced hope, unity, and a commitment to change. "We're not done yet," Maya said, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We need to keep pushing for deeper reforms, and we have to ensure that the voices of the community remain at the forefront of everything we do." Mia felt invigorated by Maya's words. "Agreed. We've come so far, but we can't let complacency creep in. We need to stay engaged, both with the community and with our colleagues." As they continued their efforts, they knew that the road ahead would be long and challenging, but they were ready to face whatever came their way, united in their mission to create a police force that reflected the values of justice, accountability, and respect for all. With each step they took, they were reshaping the future of their department, building a legacy of change that would resonate for generations to come. And as they looked toward that future, Maya felt a deep sense of purpose, an unwavering commitment to the ideals that had driven her to become an officer in the first place. Together, they would confront the challenges that lay ahead, confident that their efforts would lead to a brighter, more equitable tomorrow. The road ahead. As the new season unfolded, Mia and Maya felt the momentum of their reform efforts swell, bringing both excitement and trepidation. Their work had ignited a movement within the department, but the road ahead was still fraught with challenges. The ripple effects of their commitment to community policing and accountability were undeniable, yet they were acutely aware that the journey toward true change was just beginning. The Community and Police Alliance. One sunny Saturday, Mia and Maya organized a Community and Police Alliance Day, a day dedicated to building trust and cooperation between law enforcement and residents. The event was set to take place in a local park, featuring activities designed to foster interaction, from games and sports to discussions and workshops. Maya stood at the entrance of the park, her heart pounding with anticipation. She was greeted by the sight of officers mingling with residents, children playing games, and the smell of barbecue wafting through the air. This was what they had envisioned, a space where barriers dissolved and connections flourished. "Mia, Maya," a familiar voice called out. It was Lisa Johnson, the community activist who had become an essential ally in their reform efforts. "This looks incredible. You've really outdone yourselves." "Thanks, Lisa. We wanted to create an event that everyone could enjoy and learn from," Maya replied, her smile wide. As the event kicked off, Mia watched the interactions unfold. Officers paired with community members for games of soccer and basketball, laughter echoing through the park. It was heartening to see the walls of distrust beginning to crumble, even if just for a day. During one of the workshops, Maya led a discussion on the importance of empathy in policing. When we understand the experiences of others, we become better officers and better human beings, she explained passionately. The attendees nodded, engaged in the dialogue, and Maya felt a swell of pride, as Maya's words resonated deeply with both officers and residents alike. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over the park, Maya noticed a group of young people gathered around a table where officers were demonstrating safety techniques, A few of the youths appeared skeptical, their arms crossed, but as they listened, some began to nod in agreement. "Let's see how this goes," Maya whispered to Maya, her heart racing. She wanted to see the youth engage openly with the officers. Breaking down barriers was essential to the mission they had set out on. A surprising twist. As the event continued, Mia and Maya took a moment to step back and appreciate their accomplishments. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Maya said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Absolutely," Maya replied. "But I still worry about the pushback we're going to face from those who oppose our efforts." Just then, a commotion erupted nearby. Maya and Maya exchanged worried glances and rushed over to investigate. They found David standing with a group of officers, arguing heatedly with a resident. "This is all a charade. They're just trying to win you over with false promises." David's voice boomed, drawing attention from the crowd. "David, this isn't a charade," Mia interjected, stepping forward. "We're here to build real relationships with the community." "Is that what you call this?" he sneered, gesturing dismissively. "A few games and some food. You think that's enough to erase years of mistrust?" Mia felt a surge of frustration. "No, it's not enough, but it's a start. Change takes time, and we're willing to put in the effort to earn that trust." As the crowd began to gather, Mia noticed a mix of reactions. Some were supportive, others looked uncertain. David was effectively trying to undermine the day's events, and it was crucial that they address it head-on. Maya stepped in, her tone calm but firm. "David, people are here because they want to engage, not because they're looking for a fight. Why can't you join us instead of tearing this down?" "Because I know it's all a facade," he shot back, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're playing a dangerous game." Mia took a deep breath, attempting to diffuse the situation. "David, this is about making connections and understanding. If you truly believe in being a police officer, why not join us instead of opposing change?" David scoffed, but Mia saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. The crowd murmured, some clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation. Maya realized that this was more than just a personal conflict. It was a defining moment for the department. "Let's take a vote," one of the residents suggested, trying to bring a sense of order to the chaos. "Let's see who supports this initiative and who doesn't." Mia's heart raced. This was risky, but it could also solidify the community's commitment to reform. "That's a great idea," she said, taking a deep breath. "Let's do it." Rallying the community, as Mia organized the vote, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Officers and residents gathered around, some still tense, but curiosity was palpable. Mia explained the process, urging everyone to be honest in their responses. When the votes were tallied, the majority expressed support for the ongoing reform initiatives. A wave of relief washed over Mia. It was clear that the community was ready for change, and that their efforts were starting to bear fruit. But the atmosphere shifted as David stood before the crowd, his expression darkening. "This doesn't mean anything. You're all just being fooled by a nice event," he yelled, his voice echoing across the park. Maya stepped forward, determined to speak up. "David, this isn't about deception. It's about dialogue. The fact that so many people are here and willing to engage is proof that we can build trust. This is a significant moment for all of us." "Yeah, but don't forget that a single event doesn't change the history of mistrust," he retorted, but there was a hint of hesitation in his voice. "True," Maya added, her tone unwavering. "But it's a step forward, and we're committed to making more steps like this in the future." As the conversation continued, Maya felt a sense of camaraderie blossoming among officers and residents alike. People began to share their hopes for the future, expressing a desire for genuine collaboration. Gradually, the crowd's energy shifted, and they began to engage with David's criticisms constructively. "We want to hear your concerns," one resident called out. "Let's talk about how we can make this work for everyone." Mia stood back, a swell of pride rising within her. It was a moment of truth, and the crowd was rising to the occasion. They were not just passively accepting change. They were actively shaping it. The turning tide. As the event continued, Maya felt the tide beginning to shift in favor of reform. Residents were sharing their stories and experiences, voicing their concerns and dreams for a safer community. In that moment, they were not just police and citizens. They were partners, united in the pursuit of a common goal. The following week, Maya received an email from Captain Stevens requesting a meeting to discuss their recent efforts. As she walked into his office, she felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. "Good to see you, Mia," Stevens said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "I've been following the progress of the community initiatives, and I'm impressed with what you and Maya have accomplished." "Thank you, Captain," Maya replied, a sense of pride swelling within her. "It's been a collaborative effort, and the community is responding positively." Stevens leaned forward, his expression serious. "However, I need to discuss the ongoing resistance from some officers, particularly David. His attitude is creating a divide within the department, and I need your insights on how we can address this." Mia took a deep breath, knowing that this was an important conversation. David is entrenched in his beliefs, and he's unwilling to see the value in community policing. But I think it's crucial that we engage him in dialogue rather than dismiss him outright. He needs to see firsthand the benefits of our initiatives. Stevens nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. Perhaps we could organize a meeting with David, you and Maya. Let's facilitate a discussion where everyone can express their concerns and hopes." Mia felt a surge of hope. That could be effective. If we can get David to see that he's not alone in this, it might shift his perspective. As they continued to discuss strategies for addressing the divide, Mia felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just tackling issues within the community, they were working to create a unified front within the department as well. A moment of truth. In the following days, Mia and Maya organized a meeting with David, hoping to engage him in a candid discussion. The atmosphere was charged with tension as they sat across from him in the precinct's conference room. "I appreciate you both reaching out," David said, though his tone was cautious. "But I'm not convinced that this community engagement stuff is going to lead to anything meaningful." Maya took the lead, her voice steady. "David, we want to understand your concerns. What do you believe is the core issue with our initiatives?" He crossed his arms, a defensive posture. "I think you're just trying to win over the public to distract from the real problems we face. You can't change the fact that some people will always distrust the police." Mia felt a flicker of frustration, but knew this was an opportunity for dialogue. "You're right. Trust isn't something we can demand. It has to be earned, and that's what we're trying to do. We want to build a relationship with the community that allows for transparency and accountability." David's gaze shifted, and for a moment, Maya thought she saw a hint of vulnerability in his expression. "But what if this backfires? What if we end up looking weak?" Maya leaned in, her voice earnest. "Being vulnerable is not weakness, it's strength. It shows that we're willing to listen, to learn, and to grow. That's how we build trust." The conversation began to unfold, with Mia and Maya sharing their experiences and the positive responses they had seen in the community. Slowly, David's resistance started to soften, and he began to acknowledge the value in their initiatives. The turning point. As the meeting progressed, the three of them engaged in a deep and meaningful discussion. Maya encouraged David to share his experiences and concerns, while they offered insight into the challenges faced by residents. "I guess I just don't want to see us become a laughingstock," David admitted, his voice quieter now. "I've dedicated my career to this department, and I'm afraid of what it might become." Mia felt a surge of empathy for him. "We all want the same thing, David. A safer community and a respected police force. It's not about becoming weak. It's about becoming better at what we do." By the end of the meeting, Maya felt a sense of hope. While David's journey would take time, she saw a willingness to engage that hadn't been there before. "Thank you for being open to this discussion," she said as they wrapped up. "We're all in this together, and we can't afford to let fear hold us back." As David left the room, Maya turned to Mia, her eyes bright. "I think that went really well. He's starting to see the value in what we're trying to accomplish." "I hope so," Maya replied, her heart swelling with optimism. "This could be the turning point we need." A new challenge. However, just as they began to see progress, another challenge emerged. A national incident involving police misconduct ignited protests and calls for reform across the country. The incident became a flashpoint, and the media attention put additional pressure on local law enforcement agencies. Mia and Maya watched the news with heavy hearts, knowing that the incident would cast a shadow over their efforts. "This is going to be tough," Maya said, feeling the weight of the moment. "It's like all our hard work could be overshadowed by this." Maya nodded, her expression grave. "But it also shows how important our work is. We need to double down on our community engagement efforts. People are demanding accountability, and we need to be on the front lines of that movement." With renewed determination, they organized emergency community forums to address the concerns raised by the national incident. They invited residents to share their thoughts and feelings, providing a safe space for open dialogue. As they facilitated discussions, Maya felt the gravity of the situation. Residents were hurt, angry, and demanding change. She listened intently, empathizing with their pain. "We're here to listen and to support you," she said earnestly. "We want to be a part of the solution, and we need your voices to guide us." As the weeks went on, Maya worked tirelessly to ensure that their community's concerns were heard. They engaged with local organizations, collaborated with activists, and strived to bring about real change. The department began to implement additional training on de-escalation and community relations. A unifying moment. In the wake of the national incident, Mia and Maya organized a unity march, a peaceful demonstration aimed at showing solidarity with the community while reaffirming their commitment to accountability. They reached out to residents, fellow officers, and community leaders, urging everyone to come together. The day of the march arrived, and the streets filled with people, families, activists, officers, and community members, walking side by side, holding signs that read "Justice for All" and "Community First." The atmosphere was charged with hope and determination. Mia walked alongside Maya, feeling a sense of pride swell within her. "This is incredible," she said, taking in the sight of the diverse crowd united for a common cause. "It's a testament to what we've built together." As they approached the park, Maya took the stage, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. "Thank you all for being here today," she called out, her voice resonating through the crowd. "Today, we stand together in solidarity, not just for our community, but for a vision of a future where everyone feels safe and respected." The crowd erupted in applause, and Maya felt the energy of the moment surge through her. "We're here to show that we can be partners in this work. Together, we can build a future where trust, accountability, and community engagement are at the forefront of law enforcement." Maya joined her on stage, adding, "This is just the beginning. We will continue to listen, learn, and grow. We are committed to making meaningful changes within our department and fostering a true partnership with all of you." As they finished their speeches, Maya felt a profound sense of connection with the crowd. This was a defining moment, one that signaled a shift toward a brighter future. Looking to the future, in the months that followed the Unity March, the momentum of their efforts continued to grow. The community began to see changes in policing practices, and officers increasingly engaged with residents in meaningful ways. They organized regular town hall meetings and encouraged open discussions about policing and public safety. David, who had once been a staunch opponent, gradually began to shift his perspective. He participated in community events, fostering connections with residents. While it wasn't easy for him to fully embrace the changes, he acknowledged the importance of collaboration. "Mia, I have to admit," he said one day after a successful community event, "I didn't think this would work, but seeing people come together has changed my perspective. Mia felt a sense of triumph as she listened to David. I'm glad to hear that, David. It's all about building relationships and understanding. We're making progress, and we need to continue down this path. As they moved forward, Mia and Maya remained vigilant, aware that the road ahead would not be without its challenges. But they were committed to the journey, knowing that change was possible. Their community engagement initiatives began to take root, and Maya felt hopeful for the future. They had faced adversity, but they had also built a foundation of trust, respect, and accountability. Together, they were not just police officers. They were change makers, determined to redefine the relationship between law enforcement and the community they served. As they looked ahead, they knew that the journey was far from over, but with each step, they were making a difference, one person at a time. And with that realization, Mia felt a deep sense of gratitude for the path they had traveled together. A journey of growth, understanding, and unwavering commitment to creating a better future for all.